The football season is here. It is time to play, and Oklahoma Sooner fans are definitely going to be paying attention to the season as we are entering year 2 for the Oklahoma Sooners and Brent Venables. And the questions around this season are the Sooners going to improve on defense? When you look at what the Oklahoma Sooners posed last year as a 6-7 team, not good. Looking at the numbers, 106 in rushing, 119 in passing, 122nd in total defense out of 131 FBS teams. Those are definitely not the standards that any OU football fan has for this team. It's not the standards that have been set for this team in history. And you would expect in year 2 of Brent Venables' defense, after bringing in another round of transfers, the number 4 overall class in the 2023 recruiting rankings, that there is going to be some sort of change to this team. And you've heard Brent Venables and the staff really talk about the depth, right? Hey, we have more depth across all positions. And in some places, even our third stringers can compete with the second stringers. And that's kind of what you want to hear, right? You want to hear that everybody can compete for a position at some level, and there's not a drop off from your first to second and your second to third, right? You want everybody to be able to compete with each other. You want everybody to be able to drive each other to be the best that they can be. And the perfect example to this is at the corner position, you've really heard a name emerge, Josiah Wagner. And if you're not familiar with Josiah Wagner, well, he was I believe, a 3-star cornerback out of Washington in the 2023 recruiting rankings. Dude's vying for a starting spot. And in fact, if you look at the depth chart, it's Gentry Williams or Josiah Wagner over there. And so you look at what the Oklahoma Sooners are posing this year from a defensive side of the ball. Although you're not probably going to learn a lot about this team in week 1, definitely going into week 5 against Texas, you should know what this team is on defense, because they will have played 5 subpar teams that you out-talent, teams that you should be able to outmatch. And so we should know that this defense is either going to allow people to score or stay in games that they shouldn't, or this team's going to go in there and suffocate people and shut them down. And then going into Texas, maybe that game looks better than what we're going to project it to be. But today we're going to look at the season preview. We're going to look at the games on Oklahoma's schedule and give you a realistic idea of what Oklahoma's schedule could look like and where the wins are, where are the losses. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at this win total, because when you look at the schedule, it's a cupcake schedule. So Oklahoma should ideally roll through this. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what Oklahoma's got on the board. And so I pull up the schedule here. Obviously, the first game we got this week is Arkansas State. Now, I'm going to be bringing you guys a preview with Jay and Cooper later this week, reviewing that Arkansas State game. But by no surprise, should this be a win for Oklahoma. Oklahoma should not struggle in this game. At the same time, you really shouldn't find out a lot about your team in this game. Oklahoma should be able to go in there and handle business, do their thing, and shut Arkansas State out. Even though it's Butch Jones, the coach from Tennessee that had all the allegations against him, recruiting violations, as I should say. Yeah, that guy, the guy who's on the hot seat. But again, you shouldn't learn too much against Arkansas State. But I don't know. USC learned a lot about learned a lot about themselves against San Jose State. So let's just hope our Sooners don't put themselves in that position. They should be 1-0 going into week 2. You've got SMU. Now, you look at this game against SMU, and this is probably going to be an intriguing one, because over the past couple of years, SMU has not been a terrible team. They had Tanner Mordecai one year. They posed a really good offense. Hey, they even had receivers drafted in the NFL draft. But ultimately, you don't have Tanner Mordecai returning. So you've got Preston Stone, Kevin Jennings, and you say, well, are these going to be starters or players that can really make SMU roll like they have in the past? Not necessarily. I don't think SMU is going to be too much of a struggle for Oklahoma. Now, I also am not naive to say SMU is not going to score a single point. If SMU comes in this game, they score 7 to 10 points, and you're Oklahoma and you still steamroll them, you score 42, 48 points, you're feeling good about yourselves, right? You still held them under 10 points, 10 or under, which is where I think a lot of these opponents should be primarily for the whole season. So Oklahoma should be walking out of week 2, 2-0, as simple as that. Week 3 at Tulsa. Going to be a home game for Oklahoma, but it's not going to be a game that Oklahoma should just definitely look over. Tulsa's going to be coming off a game where they traveled to Washington. They're going to be excited to come home. They're going to be excited to play in front of their own fan base. They've got Kevin Wilson out there, but again, should be an easy win for Oklahoma. It should be a game where Oklahoma should come in, take care of business, shouldn't allow probably more than 3 to 10 points. But one thing that we know about Tulsa in the past, they have a good defense. So if they slow down the OU offense a little bit, it's going to be intriguing to see how Jeff Lebby handles that. At Cincinnati, another game where Oklahoma should win, but this could be the first trip up for Oklahoma, and let me explain why. You're going to be 3-0, traveling to Cincinnati, a team that just came to the Big 12. They're going to want to make themselves a name. They're going to want to say, hey, we beat Oklahoma on their way out. They're going to want to tout that. They're going to want to boast that. And so if you're Oklahoma, this is probably going to be an 11 o'clock game on the road. And we know Oklahoma at 11 o'clock games on the road, sometimes they don't show up. So you want Oklahoma to be prepared for this game. You want them to be hungry because this could be the first slip up. However, I've got Oklahoma winning it again, 4-0. You really don't know what Cincinnati's going to be, losing Fickle to Washington or Wisconsin, which we're going to do a season preview for them. That one's going to be really fun. I encourage you, if you're an Oklahoma fan, to tune into that one because Wisconsin's going to be an interesting team across college football. And it might be one that you want to have in your back pocket to talk around the cooler with your friends or around the hot tub, whatever you guys like to do on the weekends. But they list Desmond Ridder or Riddick, whatever his name is, their quarterback. Just a lot of unknowns for Cincinnati this year, right? So I've got Oklahoma winning that game 4-0. Iowa State, they're a hot mess. Probably not going to be any better than they were last year. Hunter Decker, the quarterback out there, who knows if he's actually going to be playing. 5-0 for Oklahoma. Don't even need to sniff at that one. Then you go into Texas, right? This is going to be a matchup where you're either going to have a battle of the undefeateds or you're going to have a Texas that is one loss to Alabama. Likely won't be a big loss for Texas. It's going to probably be a close loss if they lose at all. So you're coming in the Red River rivalry. You lost 49-0 last year. This is going to be the deciding factor that really tells you a lot about this team. If Oklahoma comes into this game and they lose, but they lose close, and your defense shows that they can play against the elite offense that Texas has, because don't let it overshadow. Texas's offense is elite. Quinn Ewers, he cut his hair. He's worked on his mechanics. He's done what he needed to do to try to be a better leader at the quarterback position for Texas. Then not to mention they have Nayor coming back. They have Worthy. They have all these weapons on offense at the wide receiver position. Texas is a team that could give Oklahoma problems, and this could be a year where Texas beats Oklahoma 2 times in a row. Hasn't happened in a while. So might be one that Oklahoma fans want to keep their eyes out on. If Oklahoma comes out of this game going 6-0, I really like Oklahoma to potentially only have one loss or potentially go undefeated for the whole season. But we'll talk about that. Right now, I have it as a loss for Oklahoma. I want to see how they look in the first 5 games before I make a prediction that says Oklahoma is going to win that game. And I think you guys would understand where I'm coming from on that, just because not that the team looked so bad last year, but because of how the coaching staff handled the team last year in terms of running them into the ground in the fall camp and in the first 3 games, I want to see the coaching staff adjust. I want to see them make a change, right? If we see that and we see that Oklahoma is doing better, hey, you know what? I might predict them to be 6-0 by this time. But let's just say 5-1 just to be conservative. You go to home, you have UCF. This is not going to be a tough game. This is Dylan Gabriel playing his old team, UCF. A nice offense. They're going to push Oklahoma's defense around just like Texas, right? Maybe not as bad as Texas, but they're going to challenge this defense a little bit. Oklahoma should win it. It's probably going to be a night game. I would circle this one as probably a 6 or 7 o'clock game for Oklahoma, which is going to be nice because it's going to be nice and cool outside. Oklahoma fans will be able to enjoy it a little bit. But that's when I circle for Oklahoma and say that could be one of your tough games. But I have Oklahoma winning it. So that's 5 or 6-1 going to go play Kansas at Lawrence. Now, they have Jalen Daniels returning. Remember, Jalen Daniels had one of the best QBRs last season in college football. Not only that, Kansas Kansas had one of the best offensive lines in the country last year, and they only improved their offensive line by going out there and getting that former 5-star out of Wisconsin. So you look at the Kansas Jayhawks roster in 2023, you have Jason Bean, the guy who causes Oklahoma problems and Texas problems, by the way, Jalen Daniels. You look at the running back position, they have a nice running back core, including McDuffie coming back. And then also you look at their wide receiver core, returning some guys there. They're returning Devin Neal. Kansas going to lose the game, but I feel like Kansas is going to give Oklahoma problems. Hey, and guess what? There also might be a chance that Kansas is only a one-loss team coming into that game. So we'll have something to look forward for that as well. Just like last year. It'd be cool to see Kansas, actually up there in the Big 12 game when we play them. But at Oklahoma State in Stillwater, last time you're going to play this game for a while, you would imagine Oklahoma is going to wake up for this one. It's going to be an easy 8-1 for Oklahoma playing West Virginia at home. This is your second to last game at home. West Virginia actually handed you a loss last year. First time they've beaten you while you've been in the Big 12. You expect that, hey, you know what? He's not going to be there. Their head coach isn't going to be there anymore. This program is going to be a disaster. 9-1 for Oklahoma, easy. This next slate of games, BYU and TCU. At BYU, TCU at home. TCU's on a Friday. There's a good chance Oklahoma goes 1-1 in this matchup. One, because if Oklahoma's undefeated, usually by this time, Oklahoma's looking ahead of themselves, and this is where they mess up and drop a game. If Oklahoma's undefeated, I would expect BYU to give Oklahoma problems on the road. It's going to be in November. It could potentially be snowy weather. And to be honest, this is going to be a ruckus atmosphere. I believe BYU has already sold out that game against Oklahoma. I would love to go. Not sure if I'm going to be able to go because of getting the new house stuff this year. I'm going to try to make it out there. But keep an eye on that BYU game. If Oklahoma loses that one, they're going to for sure beat TCU at home. I think they beat TCU at home regardless. I think the most likely attitude is going to be a BYU loss. But let's just say 1-2 between the two. You guys have your own opinion of which one Oklahoma loses at that point. So Oklahoma's heading out of the season, the regular season, with 9-2. 9-2. Better record than last year. That's probably going to meet a lot of people's expectations. You're probably playing for a Big 12 championship at that point. It's probably going to be against Texas. My philosophy is it's hard to beat Oklahoma twice. So if you have to play Texas, and let's say Texas only has one loss or is undefeated, Oklahoma has a real good chance to come in here and make a statement. Whether you're 9-2 or 10-1 in the Big 12 championship, if you beat Texas and they're undefeated and you both are one loss, we're talking about an Oklahoma and a Texas that could be in the college football playoffs. Now, if Oklahoma is 9-2, they beat Texas, they're 10-2. I don't think Oklahoma gets into the playoffs with this schedule. But if they're undefeated and they beat Texas twice, for sure in. So I think there are two scenarios where Oklahoma gets into the college football playoffs with a Big 12 championship win. And I think there's one scenario where they don't, and that's going to be a 2-loss scenario for Oklahoma. But ultimately, I think the most realistic expectations for this Oklahoma Sooners team, whether it's they end the season 10-1 and lose in the Big 12 championship game, I think the most realistic expectation is 10-2. Oklahoma goes to a New Year's Six bowl. And then in year 3 for Brent Venables, that's when you look at it and say, Oklahoma's going to play for a national championship, or at least contend for a national championship. They'll make the playoffs and contend for it. Because by that time, you're going to have PJ Adebayor in his second term in the scheme. You're going to have R. Mason Thomas out there for a junior year. You're going to have Jackson Arnold as your starter. You're going to have a little bit more development at your wide receiver core. I think Oklahoma fans don't need to get their hopes up for 2023. 2024 and 2025 are the years you look at it and go, those might be Oklahoma's best years to go out there and win a national championship as of recent, since Baker Mayfield, right? Since that year that we lost to Georgia in the Rose Bowl. I think this is Oklahoma's best chance. But guys, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what y'all's thoughts are. So go ahead, jump down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think around the Oklahoma Sooners and this season. Where do you guys think their losses are? What do you think their record's going to be? Additionally, we're going to be coming out every week with a pregame preview with somebody. We're going to be bringing somebody on, whether that's a former player or whether it's just Jay or Cooper or Ty or somebody like that. We're going to talk about these games every single week, give you a preview, break it down a little bit more in depth, look at the depth chart, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with it. We might even go live. So bring those questions. We'll be excited to have you guys be a part of this. Again, we're going to talk about recruiting. Tomorrow, you guys will see a video on a specific 5-star defensive lineman that Oklahoma is chasing. So I want to have you guys there for that. But if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and hit that subscribe.